Members of the House, the President of the Literary and Scientific Society, Daniel Benny.
Members of the House, I welcome you to what is the 21st Ordinary Meeting of the 177th Session of the Literary and Scientific Society. St. Patrick's Day is quickly approaching, if you couldn't tell, and Queen's is currently illuminated green. And in the spirit of the patron saint of Ireland, we have had three massive events on this week. First of all, on Monday, we had the privilege of hosting former President of Ireland, Dr. Mary McAleese, for an extraordinary lit talk, one which I would recommend you listen back to Spotify if you were not there. She talked about changes. Sometimes changes are simple things. The Students' Union looked different from her time spent in Queen's. The carpet of the Canada room, which we filled, had changed. Other times changes are a lot more prominent. For instance, she brought up North-South relations and East-West relations in the context of Northern Ireland. And thinking about North-South relationships, our society has come a long way in this regard as well. We have a collaboration with the HIST coming up on the 20th of March, and after some very competitive tryouts today, we will be sending 4 speakers down to take part in that. We also have the UCC Open, in which I wish Tom the best of luck for that over the weekend. And of course we have East-West relations as well. Tomorrow, myself and other members of society, and this is an open invitation to all members of society, will be going to Durham, where we've been invited to attend an exciting debate on the motion "This House regrets the creation of the Northern Irish State," which is said to be a very interesting debate indeed. Mary McAleese also talked about her children, each of whom attended Oxford, Trinity College Dublin and UCD respectively. Those are 3 other unis that we have taken part in IVs with, so it was great to have her there in that lit talk. Then we were brought to the Senate room on Wednesday, where the Muriel Campbell subcommittee met for its second time, and we heard from 8 excellent speakers. A special mention to the 2 maiden speakers who are at that debate who sit here tonight. This house decided they would not be a spinster. And then, of course, the third big event, which you're all here for tonight, is our excellent debate. I'm incredibly excited to hear what our 8 speakers at the table are going to come up and say. But before we get started with that, over the course of the week, we obviously had many questions for Dr. McAleese, and other universities have many questions about our society. And in the spirit of questioning things and daring to know more, I would like to bring us on to President's Questions. This is your chance as members of the House to ask me, your President, any question your mind can come up with. The wackier the better, I always say. But of course, there are the 2 caveats. No questions about my politics, and no questions about my sex life, or lack thereof. So, do I have any President's Questions in the House tonight? Yes, Hugh.
In following with QUB's official advice, according to a pamphlet I read in Junction Cafe, will you be avoiding the Holy Lands for St. Patrick's Day?
I spent 2 St. Patrick's Days ago in the Holy Lands, and it was actually class. It's a sight to see. I recommend it to everyone. Honestly, it was like a concert was going to take place. It was unreal. So, whilst I may not be in the Holy Lands this St. Patrick's Day, because the last time we were there was a bit traumatic to say the least, I recommend people go. Any other President's Questions? Yes, John?
If you had to have a tattoo, what would you get?
Oh, I feel like I would take the opportunity to do a lot of puns if I had tattoos. So for instance, like I get one of a cap on my kneecap. I maybe get like one of a member of the guards, on my shin. And those could be my shin guards, for instance. But yeah, probably really bad puns as body art, or a massive horrific crest on my chest. Any other President's Questions? Yes, Mark?
If any literary member was to be turned into, who do you think would be the tastiest, except Baker?
You took away my answer. How dare you? Which member of the horrific would be the best soup? Any volunteers? I'm gonna say the best Typic soup would be. I'm just gonna go for cop out and choose Bethany. Yeah, Bethany, you'd be good soup. Because I don't want to get canned. Any other president's questions? Yes, Maeve.
Would you be able to cook the soup without Bethany there?
Oh. I've spotted a flaw in my previous answer. I'll have to choose someone else. Are you volunteering? Anyone else for a president's question? Yes, Ash?
What did you have for breakfast today?
Okay, so for breakfast this morning, in the spirit of debate, I decided to get the kettle on and have a cup of Barry's Gold. Let's be real, I'm not fooling anyone. Centra Gold. And I was having my tea and it was grand. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Micheál Martin came in. And that was quite a tea shock, to be honest with you. I then also had curry and yogurt. Sorry, no, that's last time we did Gregory Campbell to write my jokes there. No, what I actually had. So when Micheál Martin was there, I felt a lot of pressure, to kind of show him where I'm from. And if you've ever been to the northwest, you'll know there's a thing called rock. It's essentially like a cylinder made solely out of sugar. So I decided to drive Micheál Martin. That's probably the most unrealistic part of this. But I decided to drive Micheál Martin, down to the port. And they've started doing this new trend where they're making like rock flavoured milkshakes. So I went to this kind of dodgy looking place, but it was the cheapest option I could find. And I went in and I tasted it and I was like, this doesn't taste like rock. That's quite weird. And it had like some kind of green things in it as well. It turned out it was a sham rock shake. There you go. Yeah, the jig is up with that one after it fell quite flatly. So on to another president's question, if we have one in the house tonight. Yes, Ella?
Have you listened to Harry Styles' album?
You caught me with Taylor Swift and you've caught me with Harry Styles as well. I've not listened to Harry Styles' new album, so I can't possibly comment on it. However, I have seen that new boy band who are kind of trying to rival One Direction that Simon Cowell's put out. I forget what their name is.
Oh yeah, they did like a Netflix show or something.
Yeah, they did like a Netflix show as well.
It was like 2 months ago, Daniel.
Yeah, it was 2 months ago. That's how you up to date. I keep on my music, but yes, I'm not yet listened to it. I will listen to it and report back.
Yeah.
Any other president's questions? Yes, Mark?
If you had to choose one piece of music that was released in last year, what would it be?
If I had for
And only listen to it for.
released in the last year. No, you're just the question's essentially name a piece of music that I can list that's been released in the last year. Any suggestions from anyone? What's your favourite piece of music released in the last year?
The new Gorillaz album.
Oh, the new Gorillaz album. Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's solid. I'm gonna say I quite like Elizabeth Taylor off Taylor Swift's new album, so I'm going to say that actually. Any other president's questions? Going once? Going twice? Okay, that brings us on nicely to private members' business. This is your chance as members of the House to bring up anything you've seen in the news recently, anything of particular interest to you, and gauge the rest of the members' opinions on it. So, do I have any private members' business? Yes, Ebert?
Straight up for Ruth. What do you guys think of that situation? How do you think it's going to be resolved? Because as of now, it appears that it's nominally closed. No oil tankers are going in and out, and oil prices are like around $100 a barrel now. So what do you think will happen there? Also, where's the British Navy? The French Navy was able to deploy eight ships. British Navy nowhere to be seen.
Anyone on that? Yes, Beth?
I mean, Emmanuel Macron has been war farming with those military edits for ages, so I think he's just adding to put those military ships out there. But yeah, no, it's really interesting how it's going to play out, because everybody's saying it's going to be World War III, but things are yet to happen, because they're all kind of useless people involved in the war. I don't really trust them to be able to start anything too much. But also, shout out to my roommate who bought a ton of oil, before the war broke out, so I panicked and was like, we need to buy oil, and we didn't. So she saved me a lot of money. Shout out to her.
I would make a pun about oil at this stage, but as I'm sure you'll agree, I've already been scraping the bottom of the barrel. So we'll go over to Rana in the corner.
I feel like it kind of just shows that this is the time to fully invest in green energy and go into renewable, because we're not gonna have petrol or oil or whatever we call it at any given time. So it's just kind of it should be a wake-up call in my opinion as well. So.
Thank you. Hugh?
I think that the optimal solution is to just bypass the Strait of Hormuz entirely by creating a Fury Road style pathway. And obviously all of the wars that come with it, I think it's all worth it.
Interesting. Ella?
I think it's kind of concerning how the whole thing's being covered on social media and how you talk to young people, well, not young people, but like how you talk to your friends about it. Because I do think it's interesting how the war, the way we view war is always that there's a bad guy and there's a good guy, and then that kind of gets thrown into context like Kenny Baker for thing into Keir Starmer for not deploying more, being more active. And then it's like, because everything's in clips and everything's in headlines, there's no substance, talking about the complexities of all the different countries that are involved. And, you know, like I have my own opinions about it, but it's the idea that you don't even get time to express your opinion. You're just asked, are you on this side or that side? You're like, oh, sorry, like I'm not really keen to step on either side at the moment. So it's interesting how nobody wants anything to be complicated anymore. It's just simple.
Thank you.
Just looking at just this morning, the gas prices in North Carolina skyrocketed up 50 cents. And as someone who's worked on a lot of campaigns in the past, I'm just incredibly excited to see how Democrats squander this opportunity.
Interesting. We have other hands up. Rosa?
There's a lot of talk about what the British Army should be doing and like who should be deployed where. But I think as evidenced by the vote that we had prior to the Spring Chamber, there's not many people that would actually want to put themselves in that position and would actually want to go themselves and be deployed and like deal with the situation.
Where's Jackson?
Yes.
I think the best option, no matter what, is to declare war in France. Get the letter of it to take, we'll go that straight. It's the best idea.
Thank you. Anyone else on that, George?
Well, I came a bit late, so sorry folks, I didn't really get the full context of discussions. Yeah, in other news about us, Keir Starmer, so I was going to call him something else. But yeah, there's been a lot of these files that have been revealed regarding Mandelson. Apparently he knew stuff, so anyone thoughts on his, once again, bad judgment coming to spite? Maybe it's time for him to finally go.
Anyone on that? Or Keir Starmer in general? Yes, Emily?
Well, I think it's very funny, like, obviously Mandelson is a very, very bad person, and there's always very bad things. However, like, you know, I don't know if we can compare Keir Starmer and things he's done with maybe some other prime ministers in the more recent past, such as Boris Johnson.
Interesting. Thank you. Ella?
Yeah, I can't remember who said it, but someone said it was interesting that the first world leader that might go because the Epstein files is Keir Starmer. And you can say if you like him or not, that's crazy, considering all the other world leaders who are actually in the Epstein files and have actually done horrible things in them. Like, I'm no Keir Starmer fan, but that's crazy that like Donald Trump will stand those different, I can't remember some leader, I can't remember where, my IR stack is not doing well right now. But it's just, he's like, he shouldn't have hired Mandelson, that's it, he should resign. Like, I just think that's so silly in a time where, as we just talked about for the past 15 minutes about how crazy the world order is, and then everyone's like, get rid of Keir, like a leadership election either, not the Tory party. Like. But yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you. Tom?
I partially agree with that. I think that what will result in Keir Starmer going isn't the Mandelson files. That will be a contributing factor. The question on whether Keir Starmer will remain in power will be answered in the May elections. Whether he can actually maintain electoral success, even though you have all this baggage economically and with the Mandelson files. So time will tell if Keir Starmer can actually will stay or not. The question will be answered in May in the local elections. By all indications so far, it's not looking good.
Thank you. Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I've been following some of what's been released today around the Mandelson files, and you know, I think it does show a lack of judgment on behalf of Keir Starmer. This is a guy who, Mandelson, who'd already been sacked twice for various reasons in the past, when he was held positions in the Blair government, and within the files, it won the file that went to Keir Starmer when he was going to appoint Mandelson to the post. It talked about Mandelson's business interests. It talked about his links with Jeffrey Epstein, staying at Jeffrey Epstein's house whilst Jeffrey Epstein was in prison apparently, and said that it would be a huge reputational risk for the government. Indeed, National Security Advisor Jonathan Powell, who knew Mandelson from the Blair years, actually went to Morgan McSweeney, who was then the Chief of Staff and was obviously sacked because of this or resigned, and raised concerns about the possible appointment of Mandelson and was told that's all been dealt with, it's all fine. I think another thing that's come to light today, or yesterday, whatever it was that Mandelson, on being sacked, had asked for a £500,000 payout, which would have been the amount he would have been paid for his entire time as ambassador. And in his contract, it didn't actually, it didn't require the government to pay him a penny, because it says something along the lines of like, the Crown has the right to dismiss at will. But they still paid out £75,000 to Mandelson as a severance payment after he was sacked, and said that it was a good deal, and that Ollie Robbins, the Permanent Secretary of the FDO, or whatever his position was, said to Labour MPs that they will keep it hush-hush, the payment to Mandelson. So lots of stuff there that I think is very damaging to Starmer. I'm sorry for the work.
Thank you, Ryan, for that very fine speech. Rana?
Local elections thing. I've recently seen that, like reform is kind of like being imposed at this point in time. But an underdog, Green Party, is ranking second in terms of for voters under the age of 50 and for women voters in any age. Whereas Labour has now kind of fallen to third, followed by Tories and like the Lib Dems and the same thing. So what do people think?
Thank you. What?
I think we're indulging in a wee bit of like chaos seeking in regards to Starmer a wee bit. Unpopular leaders have often been re-elected. Macron was extremely unpopular during his first term. Trudeau was never really popular, apart from his first couple of years. If you want to look at this from like a more macro perspective, I think he's still got it in the bag. It's not in any way good. I don't think the position is in any way desirable, but it's not recoverable. Like sure, the Green Party is kind of they're coming for his left flank a wee bit, but ultimately they are a protest party. They are an environmentalist party that's being co-opted into becoming a more leftward political party. And they are leading among like younger people, among that type of group, but then again, those are the type of people that are less likely to turn out to vote. Labour is doing better with those demographics, I would name them, that are generally more likely to turn out. So I think we're indulging in a little bit of drama here. I think that ultimately these people have a job, that's not good. It's not fun to do. So I think a wee bit of kind of understanding these people in place, even if they are objectively not doing the best job.
Thank you. Hugh?
I think it's a bit of proof that Labour has, by trying to constantly chase reforms voters, managed to lose their entire base. And now, as you said, Greens aren't exactly a most ideal party, but even still, people are seeing them as a better alternative than a party that's constantly trying to chase the right.
Thank you. Josh?
I think sort of building off of what Owen was saying, it's a little, so as we've seen at this point, I don't think there's going to be any leaders that have to resign over the Epstein files, but as a result, we have a news cycle that is stuck on a voyeuristic peddling of this story over and over again. Meanwhile, the politicians that are actually trying to pass legislation have to spend time, money, and capital reporting that they either do not support these politicians naming the files or saying nothing and being attacked by the right. So it's as bad as it is, as everything that's happened in the Epstein files and the new files have been released, they prevent actual governing from happening because politicians have to spend time defending or not defending themselves.
Thank you. I'll take the three hands over here for the last three on that, starting with Tom.
Well, I'd just like to say I completely agree with Owen. The Green Party in the May election, well, the Green Party short term isn't the biggest threat to Labour. I think if Green Party is a protest party, the wider electorate, when polled on the specific issues that Green Party stand for, such as their view that drugs should be decriminalised, they strongly oppose it. The issue in the May elections is the fact that they're local elections for Scotland and Wales. Resentment against Westminster is Labour's biggest problem, and the result will be it's a binary option in Wales, for example. It's either Reform or Plaid Cymru. I think that's Starmer's threat, and Starmer needs to justify in Maine why Labour's long history of power since the inception of the Senate is beneficial to the Welsh voters, and they can't justify that. So they have to, so the Welsh voter has two binary options, which frankly isn't very good for the country.
Thank you, Tom. And then Ollie's your hand up.
I don't really care whatever's been said. I just wanted to ask. As 11 across or 11 across, where please contact me.
Amazing. What's the clue, by the way?
Well, 11 across is the biggest all-star run from Kerry since last year's All-Ireland, which is 5-7. The one down is 6-7.
What's the one going to the Oscar? Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah, just to outline, by the way, because it's a great opportunity to endorse the guy who are good friends of our society, and you'll notice that they'll have a piece in about the Lit Talk with Mary McLeish. It's definitely worth the read. I'll take these 2 points on the PMB, yes?
On the PMB. I was going to say, I think the Green Party has the advantage of it can kind of act as an amorphous entity in voters' minds. Whatever your current dissatisfaction with the Labour Party is, this far out from the election, the Green Party can kind of fill it. So it represents a weird kind of collection of people who probably don't agree with each other, like young left-wibbers, like more socially conservative people who really feel strongly about a specific issue like Gaza. But I think that the closer it gets to the election and the more they have to kind of ossify their policies, the more you'll start to see that kind of coalition break apart and become less cohesive.
Thank you, Elliot. And then finally on this, James?
I think carrying on from what Rana said and what Elliot has just said, apparently Reform is the most popular party amongst gay and bisexual men, which is like, in what world is it actually true? Second of all, on Monday night after Mary McLeish, someone came up to me and said, you know, James, now that Peter Mandelson's out of a job, you know, you could get her for a Lit Talk. And I was like, but I don't know, but probably not.
Yeah, good call. And I think we'll leave it there, unless we have another quick and fun private members' business, perhaps?
Yeah.
Beth?
The Oscars. Jessie Buckley could win her Oscar for Hamlet because she won the BAFTA, which has been the last couple of years the decider on who wins the Oscar. Very exciting for her. Can I name another person who's been nominated for an Oscar? No. But Eraboo.
Yeah.
Ellicott?
Yeah. What's interesting though is Timothy Chalamet did not get BAFTA. And he's become really unpopular because of that clip where he was like ballet and opera, who cares? And it's, I don't know, it's funny how it's like someone just stays in the cultural consciousness for long enough, we all hate him. Like I'm not a big fan of him either, but it's interesting who might actually win the Oscar because I don't think, if it's not Timothy Chalamet, it will be I've forgotten his name now, but the guy from the I Swear film. I don't think he'll win the Oscar because it's too British focused. So it'll be interesting who wins for Timothy Chalamet, because it could be Michael B. Jordan for Scissors, which would be interesting to have on.
Thank you. I can't lie, me and Beck got robbed. Like, I couldn't believe it when I didn't see our names on the list. Yeah. Josh?
I'm just going to say, if one battle after another don't get nothing, I'm going to cry. That movie's excellent.
I'll give it a watch. Beth?
If F1 wins a singular award, they captured the entire
Thank you. And then we have George.
Yeah, well, the Oscars very interesting. I'm just interested why Keir Starmer hasn't been best actor, pretending to be a good prime minister.
Always find a way to shoehorn it. Yes, Rana.
What were really
far tangent. Do you guys think steak and ale is alcoholic?
That was before Guinness tried?
No, that was Guinness cake.
Just to end the segment on the is it or is it not alcoholic culinary section of private members' business, which has become rather staple, would anyone like to clarify that before we end? Flynn?
No, because the alcohol gets cooked out of it.
There we go, decided. And so ends our private members' business. And now I would like to call Mr. Secretary up to read the minutes from last week's debate. Mr. Secretary.
On March 5th, 2026, the Queen's University Belfast Literary and Scientific Society convened for the 21st Solidarity Meeting of the 177th session to debate the motion "This House regrets the rise of book talk." President's questions here from James, so that's what we had for breakfast. He delivered a really long pun actually, which I couldn't quite follow, rather than your actual breakfast, it's something about oranges and lemons and something like that. Ella said, have you seen a book talk? He said no. And what was the last book you read? To Kill a Mockingbird for your GCSEs and the Bible. Private members' business, we have from Calvin Black, who says, rather out of left field, he was excited by the announcement of the new Colson Thorns and Roses novel, and he asked, would the House agree with me that when it comes to romantasy, then the smuttier the better? John said maybe it's a bit smutty, but it gets people reading. Elliot then said for the uninitiated, can we have a summary? Ellen Mullen replied very briefly by saying fairy sex. Beth then said that it was about a human girl being taken in by fairies and transported to something equivalent to the north of England. Daniel said that it's very evident then that we read different things. And then he sort of added on to his point by saying, although some parts of the plot reminded him of the Old Testament. Jonathan said, when does the House think the first country abolished monarchy? Nobody replied to that, but he did incur a port fine, which Flynn Nugent then added on by saying it could perhaps be a Chardonnay fine. Maeve then asked me thoughts on the White House edits and the nuclear device edits on TikTok by Donald Trump, and Ryan Hoey said that the IDF also did edits of jets flying over to Iran with backing tracks in the background. Calvin then put forward a motion to dodge the draft. Ella seconded it, passed by 45. 13 in opposition and 13 abstentions. Maeve then forwarded that by saying she put forward a motion to wage war on the LNH. Luke said everyone must live their life for the great crusade against the LNH. Jonathan then says we should send a declaration of war. This was then seconded by Tom. The motion was then passed unanimously. I don't know if that's been sent off yet.
No, it has.
It has been sent off, we're waiting on a reply. We'll get back to that. Ryan said we've seen how we can take the enemy by surprise. Jack said that since the LNH is French, can we send a letter of war to Emmanuel Macron? But of course he is ready for war with his TikToks, although he's deployed them all to the Middle East. Jonathan then said, how can you confuse the LNH with the French? Something then about a serpent who slithers is different from a thief in the night. Sounds like Jonathan. Votes on prior opinion, we had 18 votes for the proposition, 26 votes for the opposition, 16 abstentions, meaning that the opposition carried and the motion fell. First in opposition, we have from Rosa, who said, since when are the brain-rotted teenagers allowed to be better read than me? All book talks follow the same 5 or 10 cookie-cutter recipes, and if you're not getting the books you want, then that's on you. That was a POI, and she replied that that's missing the point entirely. Book talk pushes the idea that it's more important to look like reading than actually be one. Reading is no longer about reading, and book talk is to literature what board games are to video games. First in opposition, we have from Ash, who said that she was a real-life Matilda in school, treating books less like hobbies and more like friends. One day she found the courage to speak to another girl and found that connection with her. What people call the rise of book talk is actually when many people found their community, and book talk is fractured into many small mini-talks. Book talk is not just reading, it is friendship. The idea that reading was solely to be austere is ridiculous and incorrect, and the real threat is not people reading the wrong books, but rather people reading no books at all. Second in opposition, we have from Maeve, who said all book talks follow the same story and fall into the same tracks. Every book talk has such a large overlap even between genres. Book talk also loses interest. They're sometimes identical, and that is the exact problem. By reading book talk, you lose that connection. Everyone who goes into a bookshop just goes and takes them anyway, and all these books have extremely misleading titles, and is exposing young people to a certain genre that is inappropriate. Second in opposition, we had Tina, who said book talk has revived books, millions of views across platforms, captions like "This book emotionally destroyed me, please read it and let me know what you think, and what gets people involved." Classic literature is just old enough for people to stop complaining about it, give it time and it will grow. Third in opposition, we had Peggy, who said that, Icebreaker was a book talk thing that's not appropriate for 10-year-olds. The idea that these materials are readily available for young people is regrettable, and that we should be restricting its use. Whether the opposition chooses to acknowledge it or not, BookTok is driven by sexual content, and that's an irrefutable claim. When you search at BookTok, you only see women making infantilizing comments about themselves, and this is why we should regret it. But in the opposition, we had Elizabeth, who said in 2023 only half of Americans read a book, which is still more than French. People need a way into literacy, it's a colourful community to service the entire globe. So why do few books prevail in the canon? It's because they've not stood the test of time. BookTok did not invent poor taste, we did. Finally, for the proposition, Bronnie Donnelly, who said attention spans are short and demand for engaging short-form stories. Smut is a defining characteristic of that corner of the internet. Expected checklists of tropes such as, oh no, there's only one bed. Granted, they reply to that by saying that you should go to sleep, just go to sleep. Enjoyment is an issue, it's not how you read, it's not if you read, it's how you read. And to close the debate, we had EJ, of which most of it I think I had to take out. She said, some people say that watching BookTok erotica is like watching porn for the plot. It's only 8.7% smut, and that isn't enough. If women are only reading these books to goon, then they are doing so incredibly inefficiently. Who would want to read about 2 minutes of basic missionary with the lights off? There's clearly a double standard here. Did George R.R. Martin really not get turned on when writing Game of Thrones, as writing notoriously requires only one hand? She would rather have a child read spicy romance and accidentally pick up German dungeon porn. There's a time and place of seriousness, and that place is not BookTok, she said. Question for the position, we had Ella, Megan, Ash. For the opposition, James, Elizabeth and Rosa, and the abstaining question was Beth, answered by Peggy and Ash. Finally, for open speakerability, with 4 votes for the proposition, 45 votes for the opposition and 7 abstentions, the opposition carried and the motion fell. Can I take the seats?
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for those minutes. And now we are brought on to the exciting part of tonight, the exhibition, which is our debate. Just to remind you of the motion, is this House believes that Irish culture is not a costume. So we will carry out our vote on prior opinion first. So can I have all those who agree with the motion and believe Irish culture is not a costume to please raise their hands now. Yes? And can I have all those who disagree with the motion and would like to vote for the opposition and vote on prior opinion to raise their hands now, please? Well, yes, and finally, can I have all those who wish to abstain from the vote on prior opinion to raise their hands now, please? 12 as well. Yes, Mr. Secretary, can I have the results from the vote on prior opinion, please?
Yes, with 25 votes for the proposition, 12 votes for the opposition, and 12 abstentions, the proposition carries and the motion passes.
And before we get started with tonight, a quick run through of the rules. Speakers will take it in turns, proposition and opposition, to come to the podium and deliver 7-minute speeches. The first minute of their speech and the last minute of their speech is protected time, which means there's 5 minutes in between. They have unprotected time. During this window, you'll have a chance as members of the House, as will their adversaries on the other side of the table, to challenge their points in real time. To do so, please raise your hand and shout on that point, POI or point of information. It is then to the Speaker's discretion as to whether they take that point or reject it. Please keep your points nice and short, a maximum of 15 seconds, and make sure to leave 15 seconds in between each POI being offered, otherwise you will feel the wrath of my gavel. We also have a rule about swearing, which you have all been the beneficiaries of tonight. Madam Vice President.
Yes, so if you swear you owe the House a bottle of port and then you will enjoy it, so please pay your port fines. We have a couple outstanding port fines. Annie Finton Baker, Jonathan, and then Ella owes 4. That's night going for the record.
We appreciate Ella for stepping in, but as a reminder, if you do not pay your port fines, you're not allowed to speak. Which, had I knew who owed the port fines at the start, might have saved us from those minutes, but alas, they've already happened. So, to kick off our debate tonight, I would like to welcome to open the case for the proposition, Josh, to the podium, please.
Hi y'all. Some of y'all might be a little disconcerted to see an American face up here talk on the topic of Irish culture and heritage. So to outline my qualifications, speak for the proposition, a couple of years ago I did one of those DNA stealing Ancestry.com, 23andMe things, and they told me that 60% of my genealogy was between British, Welsh, French, German, Indonesian, Polish, a little bit of orangutan, and then Irish, with that last statistic being roughly 4%. So I'm obviously the prima facie when it comes to Irish American heritage. After all, it usually is a guy who looks like myself, striding confidently into a bar conversation with little knowledge about anything on St. Patrick's Day. They have no knowledge of the history of the island, the Irish's use of the word crack, or their inability to put seasoning on their food. We've seen this stereotype. Some of my countrymen even live this stereotype. But it begs me to ask a deeper question. Why do those with a dearth of cultural appreciation for their own identity lead to appropriate culture that is not their own? It's a question that leads me back, as most things do, to America. The cultural stew of races that remains the home of every love and hate that mankind can muster. America has every kind of this culture appropriating person, especially from those of the pastier persuasion, i.e. myself. These go from, pretty not offensive to more offensive. So you've got, kids at an anime convention running around doing the Naruto run and wearing kimonos and ninja costumes. You've got Rachel Dolezal, for those of you who don't know, is a white woman who believed that if she got into a tanning bed enough, she would become black. A crowd of thousands all singing the words at a Kanye concert in Tennessee. All the words. Indian headdresses worn on those who 5 generations ago grandparents probably helped exterminate the remnants of natives who lived across the plains. And yes, the white whale of tonight's discourse, the millions of Americans who, on this upcoming Tuesday, will drink badly poured Guinness, listen to Dropkick Murphys, and levy their displeasure upon the British, despite the fact that the majority of these people have never met a British person in their life, all while engaging with a culture that for 364 other days of the year is a culture that's never touched. It's fun to make fun of these people. I make fun of these people. Y'all make fun of these people. We all make fun of these people. They're silly and they're dumb, but there's a deeper problem that belies just beneath the calm surface. It's a sentiment that leads to an overindulgence in the simplified worldview of people that stereotyping provides. By turning cultural touchstones into a piece of clothing that can be worn, the identity of peoples, Irish or otherwise, are reduced to that of a piece of clothing to be worn by the social hegemony. Earlier I mentioned Native American people, a people who for centuries have been subject to campaigns of extermination, cultural assimilation, and expulsion, all of which came on the heels of generations of degradation, stereotyping that's made them seem lesser than subhuman, savages, all justifications for the evils done to civilize the world, to civilize the West. And for those with a keen grasp on history, this may sound familiar. Legal segregation, second-class citizen status, beatings, murder, discrimination, inflicted trauma. Invisible trauma, to be sure, but it lies upon your skin more deeper than any burn. But others of you might say, well, yes, of course the empire visited injustices upon the Irish. But this is in the past. Why should we care now? Because we can see the same tools of injustice, the same stereotypes, the same lesson, the same hatreds used on people today. The revolving door of these hatreds may change. New people may come in, new people may leave, but it's the tools that remain the same. We see it every day today. And discrimination against gay and trans folks. The number of diaspora throughout the Middle East that you can see on Twitter every time the United States goes on a bender and some guy at the Twitter office decides to upload an AI video of, whatever the hell the White House has in mind for that day. When the hegemonic subjugation of these people through assimilation and extermination is complete, generations of now will see the same cultural appropriation that's happened with Irish culture, that's happened with Native American culture, that's happened with every culture in history. People drinking a foreign drink, wearing a foreign garb, and singing a foreign song, all out of tune.
Felix?
Go ahead.
Is it not true that a culture needs to be engaged with and celebrated across the world for it to actively survive and to thrive?
not if it's at the cost of the humanity of another culture. If we're saying, okay, we're gonna make fun of you, we're gonna include you as our little buddy, as our little pal. We're gonna have people dress up as leprechauns and sing little songs and dance silly tunes, all at the injustice of another people. You really think that feels good?
Let me try it.
Back and forth. We live with small discriminations every day. They mount up, they become commonplace. They paint over these petty hatreds and they become palatable. We wear them as a skin. They come over us and they just simply become a part of everyday existence. It's these small discriminations that belie years of trauma held within. Trauma that is reinflicted as generations pass and new generations grown up. The same stories, the same ideas, the same jokes over and over and over. It's the pain of generations boiled down to the act of a group from those outside your tribe, acting like you, not in reverence, but in distaste. You know, it's silly, right? Woke nonsense. To believe that someone appropriating Irish culture is inherently discriminatory, rather than just having a few Guinness with your friends on the Irish coded holiday. Well, at the end of the day, it's not up to I or anyone outside the culture to decide how to feel when their identity is used as a prop. The only valid emotions lie in the eyes of the appropriated, not the appropriator. It's these emotions that we carry with us, like a bump in the street or an insult in the pub that leave us stewing for hours, days, weeks, forever, ready to explode, brought on something so benign as someone claiming to be something they aren't. I thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Irish people. Please vote for the proposition.
Josh, for that very fine speech. I'd now like to invite to open the case for the opposition, James, to the podium, please.
On a morning of the middle of March, streets across the world turn green. Strangers pin shamrocks to their coats, music spills from open doors, and for a day, millions claim a little piece of an island that is yet so far away. Some may call it imitation, for others it will be appropriation, but perhaps it is something older than that. The quiet human instinct to step into another story, to wear its colours, sing its songs, and celebrate what we admire. The green sprawling fields of Athenry may lie low, but the culture of this small little nation is exalted far beyond the land it bears to claim. Mr. President and members of the House, Irish culture is not a costume. I don't want to see Daniel or Calvin dress up as a leprechaun, though I am told on occasion that Baker does dress up for Daniel. I won't ask the circumstances. But Irish culture can be worn and proudly shared by all. In fact, that's what makes Ireland special. The country of Céad Míle Fáilte, 100,000 welcomes, cannot be allowed to adopt an exclusivist approach to who and who can celebrate Irish culture. The same culture that has spread throughout every corner of the earth, and proudly so. Not through colonisation, because the Elliot's ancestors already got there, but due to the fact that the spirit of the Irish is one that is resilient, one that has experienced suppression and rose above it, one that knows and understands the struggles of others and attempts to make right what is wrong. When a great son of Ireland, John F. Kennedy, returned home and addressed the Houses of the Oireachtas in Dublin in 1963, he spoke that it is the present and the future of Ireland that today holds so much promise to my nation as well as to yours, and indeed to all mankind. A culture that is not read and engaged with cannot also be expected to survive. That promise of which Kennedy spoke of is still being realised. What Irish culture offers to the world is still being fulfilled. And tonight I announce to the House something truly radical. I will use my university degree for something useful. You see, as a scholar in politics and international relations, if Irish culture were not as fluidly engaged with and celebrated as it is, then the diplomatic soft power of Ireland would simply not be as great as it is. Our defence forces couldn't hurt a fly, but our notoriety on the world stage and across the globe reaps massive benefits for the nation. Sure.
The debate is literally that Irish culture is not a costume, not that Irish culture cannot be celebrated. We are talking about the commodification and the novelty and the downgrading of Irish culture across the world, not its celebration.
Well, I would disagree with that, because who defines what is wearing as a costume or what is not? If someone dresses up as a leprechaun and likes to drink Guinness, but that brings many millions of euros into the Irish economy, I don't really have a problem with it. In that regard, Ireland's tourism board, Fáilte Ireland, estimates that the country receives close to 130 million annually from the St Patrick's parades across the country, whose numbers are surely swollen with tourists from across the world seeking to take part in such a celebration of Irish culture. Ireland's cultural perception across the world has certainly enhanced not just how we are viewed across the world, but how others actually interact with the Irish nation and its people. That image of a people who are fond of a pint, mostly cheerful and fun, cannot be overestimated in regard to its impact. Tourism is worth €6 billion to the Irish economy. If the opposition had their way tonight, Ireland would still be living in a perpetual cycle of the post-2008 economic downturn. In 2020, Ireland was elected to membership of the United Nations Security Council on a 2-year term. Foreign Minister Simon Coveney at that time spoke of Ireland as a nation committed to peace and ending conflict, noting that there has not been a single day since 1958 in which United Nations peacekeepers who are Irish have not been deployed. Indeed, they are still deployed presently in Lebanon and Syria, overseeing a very fragile peace, and I believe that commitment should be rightly honoured. Irish culture should be shared and cherished by all. As far as the Irish diaspora are spread, so too should be the fruits of their culture. The Irish have gone everywhere, from the streets of Sydney in that corner of the world to those who left during the famine to seek a better future in America as the exiled children of the nation. To deny anyone in participating in Irish culture is to deny our own history. If Ireland were to guard its culture too tightly, the songs, stories and symbols that once travelled across oceans with its diaspora would begin to fall silent. To claim that Irish culture should not be worn is to ignore the living reality of the present day. It doesn't just mean that anywhere you go in the world will have an Irish pub with the Sunday game on. It means that before you even step foot on foreign soil, that people know who you are and what you represent. A culture that is proud of its past and ambitious for its future. One that has been forged in hardship and endures till this day. Irish culture should never diminish anyone else's identity. With it, there should always be celebration. There should be a bit of pride in it, and there should always be a few pints and a good bit of crack. Grandma, a carton.
Thank you, James, for that very fine speech. I'd now like to invite second in the proposition, EJ to the podium, please.
Adini Fuin Ushla Mokarda Almanakthi. Tonight, the proposition and I are here to prove to you that the Irish culture is certainly not a costume, and there is simply no one, and I mean no one, more qualified to speak on this matter than me. A posh person from Dublin, who has completely been Gael-pilled simply because it's trendy. I got my Aoife Colley art scarf, I have my kneecap scarf, and I also have my Guinness storehouse jumper that I got when I threw up all over myself after the tour. I would also have those cladded earrings. Unfortunately, I cannot wear cheap jewellery because my body takes it as an attack, which is how inherently posh I am. But it's things like cladded earrings being made from plastic that show how these garbs don't really celebrate the truth of Irish culture, but are rather us selling out small commodities that we have left in order to make a small bit of commodification, a bit of bank. rather than these things being actually made for good qualities. These things are just being made to sell, and we are selling out our culture, as Mr. Torres said would be great for our international relations. But Macharta, the point is that if Irish culture was a costume, then Dublin Southside Riders, and those two safe parts of the north side me and Beth are from, have therefore been nothing but fervent stewards of Irish culture in the rich, unharmed cultural landscape of the Pale. And definitely not to blame for the commodification and dilution of our culture into nothing but mere fashion trends and a selling point for American tourists. Us South Dublin private school divas who adopt these scale pill trends and push them out through our trendy social medias, finally a cultural guard for the Irish girlies, are the same people who literally stuck up their nose at anyone from outside of Dublin, physically recoiling as they muttered, "Oh no, culchies!" And that includes people from Belfast City. It does not matter. We are not indiscriminate in that way. To them, the rest of Ireland is good for nothing but their holiday homes in Wexford and Kerry. The Gaeltacht is seen as a collectively traumatising experience where all of a sudden you're in a 3-bedroom home in the middle of the field in the west, with no one around for miles but a ban on tea, speaking to you in the thickest Connemara accented Irish, force-feeding you nothing but meat and potatoes for every meal, with absolutely no regard for the fact that you're a Gemini keto vegetarian. And she didn't even flinch when you said you were going to call Daddy, who's like really high up in like solicitors. It's also the same people finding out you're from Dublin, you ask what school you go to and look confused when you answer a community college? Is that like near Terry? Us posh Dubliners think that we can all agree, do not represent Irish culture for the majority, yet are the first to jump on a pedador drop. This kind of costume that the opposition can make out to be a culture is actually just a trend that preppy, insufferable divas of my niche South Dublin culture can afford and constantly avail of. These people represent such a small minority of the culture, their costume is also just classist. This is not an Irish culture as a costume, this is a status symbol that few can buy into, which is also just absolutely not a culture because few people on this island can drop €120 on a new Pellador collab for the culture. And saying that Irish culture is a costume is really just fetishizing men wearing cladded rings with mullet and a mustache, wearing DC Fontaine shirt, because that's not Irish culture as a costume, that's simply my type. And once again, it's usually propagated by South Dublin men who are renownedly figureheads of preserving Irish culture. Like, you cannot tell me that the same MFers saying that they were ace of the ruggers and they would have joined the boys in green if Jaunters hadn't rippered his ACL during horseplay on the fields of the Rock. Which honestly just sounds like a euphemism for gay sex. And it should be a euphemism for gay sex, but it isn't. Because South Dublin men being not gay but doing everything but just straight up gay sex is Irish culture. Not the DC Fontaines jersey. As opposed to literarific culture, which is the exact same except with gay sex. And evil gingers. Oh look, I love that. Speaking of... Calvin, can we consider the fact that you are student? Anyways. But speaking of evil gingers, so driving into, tourist wants you to sell out the Irish culture in order to keep our name in the international order, to keep us being seen internationally as these cheery, fun people that just like a good pint, and not as a nation of people who, like, people always talk about the luck of the Irish when historically it was terrible. Like, we are a nation of people, we are not just a commodity. A culture needs to be engaged with to survive, yeah, but if you sell it out, you also risk actively diluting that culture and very more erasing it. Right now we see the Napoleon jacket trend, which actually just has Chinese-influenced clasps down it, but of course we're going to say that the French invented it. What if the French take over our culture for doing this? Have we thought about that? There's a reason that rat and French are the same word, I'll spell it. But, as was admitted by my first speaker on the proposition and also by James Torres in his opening, Irish culture isn't a costume. And so, with neo-colonialism, what do we have left? Because we're not out here pillaging other countries anymore. We have commodification now for neo-colonialism. So actually, sell out your country, make those plaid scarves, make those plaid rings, and sell your people just so that we can see you as like cute, fun little people that we want to keep doing deals with. That's not the case. Ireland has an innate history of imperialism where the British left, but we just replaced them with MNCs and billionaires that we now still bow down to, and we haven't created a system that overrides such a thing. So to actually further commodify our culture and to say like, oh, like Americans love the Aran Island jumpers, like those aren't real Aran Island jumpers. None of them are from the Aran. Like they're just so that we can trick American tourists into buying €500 jumpers for absolutely no reason other than a big buck for Grafton Street. People internationally have said that, oh, we should make the Irish character digestible. They're a lovely, cheerful group of lads who just want to grab a pint. And it's great to be known as welcoming. But once again, how many times is an Irish person abroad and mistaken as English? We are our own people, and it's time we start acting as a separate group and entity rather than someone that's just going to simply sit down and idly take whatever sort of international perspective they're going to push on you because they don't believe that there's more to the Isles than just that island of England. There's a small one beside it called Ireland, and it deserves a place in the international order, and we don't have to do that through commodification. We can be our own people. Gur mila machtiv.
You do for that very fine speech. I'd now like to invite second on the opposition, Elliot, to the podium, please.
You may know me as Elliot, the computer science student, but in a day gone by, I was Elliot, the theatre kid. I dreamed of being a star. In year one, I was cast as central character of the Bible and dramatic foil to Jesus Christ. Small sheep number 4. Based on my moving and dramatic performance, I achieved the role of Earl in the year 6 leaders play. I was terrified. The Earl had over 10 lines and I had just learned how to cap that high. I put my life and soul into that performance. I practiced in my costume until it was a second skin. And I mean that literally. It was plastered to me with blood, sweat, and spilled Capri Sun. But I knew that one green bib wasn't enough to sell the character. The costume needed a piece de resistance. The dramatic peak of the Earl is when he teaches some young squires the values of chivalry, and they call him Bumface because this is a play written for 11-year-olds. So when I stood up on that stage, I held my breath and tensed all the muscles in my face until it grew a deep red. The technique worked perfectly, wowing the audience during rehearsals and the initial performances, up until that fateful final night, the parents' visit. I knew that if I could pull off this final performance, I would be just like my heroes, Sean Connery, Kevin Spacey, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, except I would be normal around women. However, when I stopped breathing that night, the funniest thing happened. I fainted. I hit the stage with a bang in the worst way possible. But I got back up. I brushed the carpet fuzz off my bib, and I persevered. That day, I proved my worthiness for the costume with my willingness to lose consciousness for it. And while, after being woefully miscast as Salt Shaker number 2 in year 8, I had to become a computer science student, never to wear a costume or talk to a woman again, I know that some part of me deep down is still that Earl lying in a pool of his own saliva. What is a costume? It is not a piece of fabric or a mask, because some of my favourite Ewan McGregor costumes haven't featured clothes at all. It is an identity, a set of values, a way of being that you embody and crucially you commit to. The best actors don't just appear to be a character. For the length of the film or primary school play, they become that character. What is a culture? It is not where you were born. By that logic, Rudyard Kipling isn't British. It is not where you grow up. By that logic, James Connolly isn't Irish. It's not where your parents were born. By that logic, I'm not English, and listen to my voice. Culture is also fluid and dynamic. A guy asks me for directions at the CS formal, and I get maybe 3 words out before he says, "Shut the fuck up, you don't know anything." I told one of my friends that I purchased a bidet, and he stood up and told me that that was damning evidence that there was no Anglo-Saxon, only French-Norman blood flowing through my veins. He told me I was a bastard child of William the. And as I am so often reminded here, I might very occasionally be a bit South African. Because a culture isn't a part of you. It's something you embody, you become. It's a set of shoes that you step into. It's an attitude that you take. When I apologise for nothing, I'm British. When I get up here, for some reason, I'm South African. When I join the morning meeting at work, I am Puna's strongest soldier. In some way, I commit to the values associated with those cultures. But why, as Prop argues, do Americans laugh around as Irish people? It's not because they view culture as a costume, it's precisely the opposite. Ask any American about their Irishness, and they'll personally insist that they were birthed by James Joyce into the weighted arms of Seamus Heaney. They agree with Pop. They believe that culture is a part of yourself that you cannot remove. So when they become disillusioned with American culture, instead of distancing themselves from it, they try to find reasons why they actually truly belong to another culture. If they had the courage to view their own culture as a costume, they could remove themselves from it. The proposition has argued that it demeans Irish culture to call it a costume. I do not think anything could be further from the truth. What is more valuable, that which you are born to or that which you earn? You are not your culture because of the child you were, but the person you are. So, ladies and gentlemen, Irish, British, German, Czech, whatever. We know that whatever the European culture, there is only one prop that will complete the costume. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not drink at the Botanic Inn because I like it. I loathe it. But I know that when my face turns red, not from holding my breath, but because of the pint in my hand, I complete the cultural costume. English, Scottish, or South African, my ancestors look down at me with pride, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So do not take your culture for granted. Earn it. Earn the right to wear the costume. Thank you, and vote for the opposition.
Speech. And now, third the proposition, I'd like to invite Emily to the podium, please.
Trónama an dúchtarán agus cáide eile, Emily is an dom agus by me a kind true culture na Heron in Noon. Now don't worry, that's the extent of the Irish I have. Thank you to the Irish Lunatic Curriculum. Now I know you must be thinking, who does she think she is? Talking about Irish culture with that accent. Well lads, let me tell you all a story. Once upon a time, in the early 2010s, a young girl was plucked from her home in Nottingham and spirited away to the middle of nowhere, which is more precisely known as Westmeath. I lived there until very recently, and I think 14 years of Irish schooling, has given me qualification enough. This motion asks us to believe that Irish culture is not a costume, and I agree. But this motion had me thinking, myself, what does Irish culture mean to me? And the answer wasn't Guinness for once, or Dublin. The answer was cultures. To Dubliners, EJ, Beth, cultures are everyone who's not from Dublin, which is the majority of the country. But newsflash, Dubliners, there are other towns and cities outside of Dublin. Not including the People's Republic of Cork, of course. Cultures have a unique culture that makes up the backbone of this country. I'm now going to throw out some phrases, and those who get it, and if not, that's not my problem. Honda Civic, the horse outside, the Rose of Tralee, motorway tractors, rebel songs, Sam Maguire, inflatable communion slides. No, I'm not going to explain that one. Supermax, Ag Science, the RSA Safe Cross Code, the ploughing, which was held like 20 minutes from my house for like years. The beep at the start of every single listening exam. Line dancing to Anjolene. One thing cultures really love is the GAA.
For those of you who are wondering, what is the GAA? What is it? Well, let me tell you, it is a cult. Well, technically, it's not a cult. It's the Gaelic Athletic Association, which promotes like Gaelic sports like, Gaelic football, or hurling, or camogie, or handball. But, the founding of the GAA took up a week of my history education at like 14, and I was not happy about that, because I never liked the GAA. However, and that week could have been dedicated to literally anything else, but that is cultural blasphemy. And after all, it is still the nation's cult that we all buy into. Traditionally, every parish had a local CLG, which then led players into the county panels. County pride is big for the cultures as well. Yes.
Since Dublin won 6 in a row, don't even...
Dublin does not count. Dublin does not count. County pride is big for cultures. Well, except if you're from Westmeath, or Cavan, or Leitrim, because there's not loads to be proud of there. County pride has led to rivalries so heated they give Daniel and Baker's romance a run for their money. Border people can also find themselves in a hot seat. Do you support Westmeath, or Scarman, Longford, or Offaly? No, these are not random words, these are counties, people. My choice was painstakingly easy because someone I don't like made the Westmeath panel, and I refused to support someone who used to beep at me in his little Ford Focus as I was walking down the hill from school. Offaly is also my electoral district, as a certain politics student likes to remind me. And because God forbid you ever leave the politics alone, Owen. During championship season, there's nothing like pints, GA jerseys, and bunting everywhere in your village or town. That is when Irish culture is at its best. Everyone comes together to call for the local club. Another thing I love, and I think is an inherent part of Irish culture, is unresolved generational trauma. After doing Leaving Cert Art history and learning about the process of colonisation for 800 years, and then hearing myself speak, I do feel like I need to apologise. I'm very sorry, guys. Even in modern times, dealing with Enoch Burke has left a significant impression on the nation's psyche and culture. Pulling an Enoch is not something everyone will understand, but the cultures would. Enoch is another thing Westmeath is known for. That old pub in Niallhorn, shout out Niallhorn. He is from Mullingar. I think also, on reflection, the education system has left its mark on Irish culture. For those of you who don't know, the literature chosen for study is infamously depressing. You don't get to be performatively Irish until you've had to watch Colcamillish, or read Side, or suffer through Irish Catholic school. There's a Maeve Binchy quote that states, "I had a very happy childhood," which is unsuitable if you're going to be an Irish writer. And I think the Department of Education saw that quote and ran with it and was like, yes, we are making the curriculum this, as depressing as humanly possible. I mean, the literal play for the Irish curriculum ends with the main character committing suicide after being rejected by the father of a baby, which he then puts in the oven, which my Irish teacher did actually act out for us. This is nothing compared to Kukla. Guys, go Google it, it's mental. It's almost as if they want us to be sad. But that's how Fontaines keep making good music. Music my bald 54-year-old dad loves. Try thinking Fontaines is school after hearing about that. To make matters worse, I went to an all-girls school. The smell of Cooker Brown Tanner the whole time. Skirts were always either long enough to wear pajama bottoms underneath, or so short it was indecent and Kremlin approved. That was the unfortunate interaction with the boys' school. The uprose and our high-latched tracksuits in that school were awful. There were very good reasons I barely dated when living in Athlone. The prospects were bad. So bad I gave up after one try. Because who needs the lad who says, did you know I was on the county minor panel at the teen disco as people were shifting in the corners, or the lad who was related to De Valera, which in my opinion is not the big sell he thought it was. I think, on a final note, Catholicism plays a large part in Irish culture still. It's not as big as it was. However, cultural Irish Catholics still go around with their rosary beads hanging off their rearview mirrors. Irish grannies will light candles and pray for you while you're sitting in your leaving cert exam, after a slice of homemade brown bread and a strong cup of tea. My secondary school once brought us on a trip to Knock, which is pilgrimage. We went on a school-sanctioned pilgrimage. Irish culture is a lot of things, beyond the clatterings. Even if clatterings are crass, or pints of Beamish, shout out to the sunflower. It is a byproduct of religion, colonialism, and rebellion. Ireland welcomed me and my family with somewhat open arms. I mean, can you blame them? With this accent? But fundamentally, what is the most important thing about Irish culture? For cultures, is growing up in place with fuck all to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily, for that very fine speech. We're going to be drinking well next week as well. I'd like to invite Ella third in the opposition to the podium, please.
Lads, good evening. I will admit that I've been drafted in last minute by myself, so I've had to suffer the WhatsApp text that all of you have to suffer under me. So this speech might be a tad messy, my performance might be slightly shocking, but for the first time in a while I can't blame it on a hangover because I've actually been well behaved this week. Let me begin by admitting something that may sound at first a little heretical. Sometimes culture is a costume. Sometimes it is something you wear, something you display, something you perform. And for the Irish people, after centuries of being told to hide it, suppress it, and apologise for it, the fact that people are finally willing to wear it, whether literally or metaphorically, is not a problem, it is a triumph. All culture is a costume to a certain degree. I grew up in rural Donegal, but my mother wanted me to sound proper, so she force-fed me British TV, which is crazy for a woman from Derry, but hey-ho. Lads, British culture became my costume. I spoke like a BBC presenter and asked my dad how were we celebrating the Diamond Jubilee. Tyler Mullen could not believe what he produced. But let us remember that Irish culture did not always enjoy the easy confidence of global popularity. There were centuries when it was something to be hidden rather than celebrated. The Irish language was discouraged in schools. Traditional music was dismissed as provincial. Even our names, our accents, and our traditions were treated as marks of backwardness. Irish identity was not commodified, it was marginalised. And yet, despite all of that, it endured. It endured in kitchens where songs were sung quietly. It endured in communities where stories were passed on long after official history had ignored them. It endured in emigrants' hearts, scattered across the globe from Boston to Buenos Aires, where people held on to something intangible, unmistakably Irish. So when critics today wring their hands because performative men like Baker Noble wear Canada rings, or because a pint of Guinness has become trendy for BT9 girls and you can't get into Kelly's anymore, I cannot help but find the panic a little bit misplaced. Guys, if we ban all the performative Irish men, my dating pool goes from the size of a jacuzzi to the persistent puddle on Botanic Avenue. Because what they see as trivialization, I see as visibility. For generations, the fear was not that Irish culture would become fashionable, the fear was that it would disappear entirely. Cultures do not vanish because they are celebrated too loudly. They vanish because they are ignored. And if someone halfway across the world discovers Ireland through a pint, a ring, or a song, or a TikTok sound, well, that's not theft, that's an invitation. Now, my opponents will tell you that treating culture like a costume is disrespectful. They will argue that traditions lose their meaning when they become commercialised. But this argument assumes something deeply pessimistic about culture. That it is fragile, that it cannot survive popularity, and that it must be locked away like a museum piece to remain authentic. But Irish culture has never been a museum piece. It is messy, evolving, and contradictory. The Ireland of today would be unrecognisable without the exchanges from all the different immigrants who've come here. We are bungled together group of mishmash people who don't agree with each other on half of anything, but we are Irish. Culture is not dismissed by contact, it is forged by it. And let us be honest, the Irish themselves, no thank you, the Irish themselves have never been strangers to a bit of theatrics. This is a nation that turned St. Patrick's Day into a global spectacle of parades, music, and yes, sometimes questionable green outfits or green ties worn by Daniel. And do you know what? It worked. A small island on the edge of Europe managed to project its identity across the world. The Taj Mahal turns green, the Empire State Building green, the Sydney Opera House green, and even Big Ben, which is crazy when you think about it, turns green. That is not cultural loss, that is cultural victory. So yes, it's incredibly annoying when an Englishman in a Hatfield tells you he is better Irish than you because of his GCSEs. Or, yes, it drives me mental when D4 baddies like Beth or EJ However, fake English accents say they relate to Kneecap and they went to see them in Fontaine's DC when I couldn't get tickets this summer. I drive people mental. The people I grew up with. When I wear a Donegal jersey and we get to the All-Ireland final, when I haven't watched any of the matches, and I know that the only thing I ever did in Sean McCool's GAA park was hide under the benches in the changing rooms because I have the athletic ability of, frankly, someone who's very bad at sports. Because when someone wears a claddering without knowing the full history, the appropriate response is not outrage, it is conversation. It is the opportunity to say, let me tell you what that symbol means. Like saying, hey Baker, you know the way you bought that claddering for yourself? That means you're destined to a life of no love. You have Daniel, so it's fine. Culture spreads through curiosity, not gatekeeping. And more importantly, we must recognize that what this moment represents for Irish people themselves. For so long, Irishness was something to be mocked, associated with poverty, drunken caricatures, or colonial stereotypes. Now suddenly it's fashionable. Suddenly people want the music, the symbols, the stories. Forgive us then if we choose to celebrate it rather than be suspicious. Because the story of Irish culture is not one of delicate purity. It is a story of stubborn survival. It survived colonization, it survived famine, it survived mass emigration that scattered millions across oceans. If that culture could endure all of that, I can assure you it can survive a few trendy TikToks about Guinness, or BT9 girls, or D4 girls, or performative men. Indeed, perhaps the greatest testament to its resilience is precisely this. That something once suppressed can become something others wish to emulate. So no, Irish culture does not shrink when someone wears it like a costume. If anything, it proves how powerful it is. Costumes, after all, are worn in admiration. They are worn because people want to participate in something bigger than themselves. And if the world now wishes to participate in Irish culture, even imperfectly, even commercially, then perhaps the most Irish response is not indignation, but a raised glass and a warm welcome. Because after centuries of being told to put our culture away, the real victory is that nobody can ignore it anymore, nobody can take it away. And for those reasons, I urge the House to reject the motion.
Here you go. For that very fine speech, and now to close the case for the proposition, I'd like to invite Cian to the podium, please.
I would just like to open by saying thank you to all speakers for your contributions tonight. There's a saying amongst people in Ireland who have left home to seek new opportunities, and it states that it's a sad day when a native son or a daughter takes up with their oppressor, and judging by her exposure to British media, I'm afraid to say Miss McMullen falls into that category. And I think it's extremely poignant when talking about Irish culture and identity today. Too often, I've seen the legitimacy of someone's Irishness being placed on necessity of sharing a similar home place. If that was the case, then Ireland's international community and status would not even remotely resemble what it does today. And let me tell you something, that identity does not come from a homeland alone, or a singular creed or complexion. No. Irish identity is something that's born from passion and comradeship, and it's moulded from resistance and desire. And I think what disturbs and infuriates people on the island of Ireland with regards to commodification wearing culture as a costume is the wish of a toothless but nevertheless hateful minority. It's their goal to exclude those who they deem as not being Irish. Perhaps it's the view of some who hide behind social media to exploit a specific singular example of wrongdoing or costume wearing, much how members of the opposition have done thus far this evening. So-called patriots state their argument in a similar fashion against those who have an international ancestry but live and represent Ireland. And in light of this, I cast my mind back to a few weeks ago when Ireland's senior men's rugby team played Italy in the Six Nations. And one man stood out in particular, but sadly, it was for reasons that genuine Irish supporters would not have hoped. His name is Edmund O'Donoghue, and I have no doubt that most of you have no idea who he is. He was born in Cove, in County Cork, to Nigerian parents. Edmund made his debut for Ireland that day, and he made a commendable 9 tackles in 10 minutes. However, he made 2 errors that led to penalties to the Italian team. And it was these moments, of course, that some so-called Irish fans chose to focus on. Despite there being many other Irishmen that had lacklustre performances, Edwin was the only one to receive criticism that did not target his ability, but rather his race. He had his Irishness questioned and was subject to deplorable and racist discriminatory comments. Some people even said that Edwin did not represent Irish culture. Tadhg Furlong was lifted off the ground 3 times in a row by an Italian player during the match, an image that has now become a widespread internet meme. Yet Tadhg Furlong's ability to represent Ireland wasn't questioned. I wonder why. Ireland emerged victorious against the Italians that day, which is what Monaghan feels like for any English or Welsh people in the room tonight that might forget the feeling. But one question stayed in my mind for days after the match. How can anyone question the Irishness of someone else who pulls on the green jersey to represent Ireland on the international stage, or in some form say that that's a costume? Yes, the only costume that exists in relation to identity here is a digital mask in which the Twitter and TikTok mobs choose to hide behind, many of whom undoubtedly have never played a day sport in their lives. When I think of identity and embracing culture, I think of Jameson Gibson Park, I think of Bundy Aki, I think of James Lowe. All men born outside of Ireland in the Southern Hemisphere, all men who have represented Irish rugby with honour, and all men who I personally witnessed singing Ireland's national anthem out on the Bean. Most of them have little to no Irish, yet they learned the anthem. Compare those men to the various representatives of Ulster Rugby who have played for Ireland down through the decades and represented the country as honourably, but refused to sing the national anthem because it was written in Irish and because of its connotations. But why were those same Ulster players not criticised for their poor displays against Italy, like Edwin Hidalgo was? By right, they're no different. To our knowledge, both examples live in Ireland and don't speak Irish. Perfectly fine, is it not? The same way, perhaps, that it was perfectly fine to attack a black man for his lack of Irishness and not an Ulster man who plays for the Irish rugby union team.
Do I?
No, thank you. Irish identity and culture are not a costume. It's not a concept. It's a spirit of fight, camaraderie, and friendship that is earned through inclusivity. The only costume is the one of false patriotism worn by those who belittle and demean other Irish people. That costume is worn not just by people in the south of Ireland, but by the certain elements of the British populace in the north who wish to spread a similar sentiment. The letter I have, which is a copy, was found a few months ago spread around the village of Clough, County Down. It reads that nationalist culture will not be welcomed, Islamic culture will not be welcomed. The wearing of GAA, O'Neill's or Celtic Football Club clothing is prohibited. Reports of the following will lead to swift eviction by force and sustained attack. Report all incidents to DUP councillor Alan Lewis. I wonder, will the DUP wish to publish that on their election manifesto? Perhaps time will tell. For now, I leave you with the words of a man who knew the meaning of Irish identity and solidarity, Terence McSweeney. It is not those who can inflict the most, but rather those who can endure the most that will conquer. For some, maybe it is more important to suppress the identity of others than to express their own. But history has taught us one thing, and that's that Irish culture can endure that regardless. You cannot call Irish identity or culture a costume, the same way that you cannot denigrate another person's heritage. If you throw that stone, you might hit your own fellow countryman. Or Megan.
For that very fine speech. And now to close the case for the opposition and the debate as a whole, I would like to call Beth to the podium, please.
All POIs are welcome, guys. So, but I'm sure I'm going to rage bait some people. Is far Gaeilge Brista no Bearla Clista. This states that speaking broken Irish is better than speaking fluent English, something that my Irish teacher would always say after I once again made the same 4 mistakes in class. And in the context of this debate, it means that engaging with some Irish culture, especially the language, is better than engaging with other cultures, i.e. the more Englishy culture we've all been forced to have, the West Britness, despite it being easier for us. What is culture but a costume, something you can take on and off? While culture can mean the ideas, customs, and social behaviours of a certain group, it's also the arts and other manifestations that we regard collectively.
Ireland has a rich culture, from music to literature to food. And while engaging with it is inherently a performance, because it's intentional. Whenever you choose to drink a Guinness over Heineken, that's a choice. When you choose to eat a carvery on a Sunday, that is a choice. And when you decide to read James Joyce, by God, is that a choice you've made? These aren't bad things. And as Ella mentioned, it's a privilege and a choice to engage in the culture. It's something that our ancestors have been denied for so long. So we must embrace what we have with intention and engage with it. Now, we've heard a lot about how we're D4 baddie. I'm actually from D5, went to a culture from Westmeath and a true North Gael girl. But I say darts and I went to the red on the green, so it's a battle I won't bother to fight. But before all of that, I was a little German girl. Yes, I actually grew up in Berlin. When I arrived back in Ireland at a mere 7 years of age, I had a thick German accent and bad English grammar. I had a little dirndl and knew nothing but Germany. I stuck out like a sore thumb. I couldn't play Gaelic or Camogie. I couldn't speak a word of Irish because my Gaeilge mother thought I was too thick to speak 3 languages, apparently. And worst of all, I didn't know who One Direction was. But after my first day of class, I decided to put on an Irish costume after being cornered by a girl and asked to speak Germany. It was a very scary time for me. I went to cool camp despite how bad I was at it. I learned Irish and soon became better than most of my class. And I learned what makes you beautiful. And that doesn't make me any Irish, because I made a choice. Culture is not a rigid set of rules that define us. It's what the people decide is cultural. And to be honest, there is old Irish cultural clothing, mostly kept alive in the Aran Islands, but nobody dresses like that, and so that's a uniting cultural image and more of a necessity for people who had nothing. But when I think of Irish cultural dress, I think of a GAA jersey and a bad farmer's tan. I think of bad fake tan and neon pennies bandeau dress on the way to spoons and then the academy. And that is the thing, we are so focused on the past and what it used to be, where we forget that we are a culture, we are a people that still exist today, and we should always be pushing forward on the culture and striving to new paths. For years, speaking Irish was embarrassing, at least in Dublin, don't shoot me if it's true. My mother was ashamed in the 80s to speak Irish. She actively tried not to. But now it's all different. The Irish I hear, in Dublin again, don't shoot, I hear spoken now is staggering. There's no more, it's a dead language, why would I learn it on the Green Corps? There's a real zest for the language. People happen to speak it no matter how broken it may be. People now, immigrants, are learning to speak the language. The amount of people here who are like, I'm not from Ireland and I'm going to take Irish classes, which is like bizarre even like 10 years ago when nobody was learning Irish. And then also a little bit of rebuttal to what EJ said about it being a trend. A lot of this trend is people learning Irish, and that's always going to be a good thing. One, because you've put the effort to learn the language and you're low-key not going to forget it. Like, there is stuff in the back of my brain that I've not spoken in years that's coming out. And I don't, seeing Irish culture is not a costume, I think also sets somewhat of dangerous precedent. One, what is the harm for people who feel proud of the country through eating spice bags and chicken fillet rolls, wearing a Fontaine's DC jersey while drinking a Guinness? The proposition has ragged on them, pretty ironically, the second speaker who's wearing a kneecap scarf and a clattering. How much cladded jewellery does this respite own? But it's still unclear to me what exactly the issue with that is and why it's so bad. Just because they're engaging in a culture in a way you don't like doesn't mean it's a valid form. For a culture that's faced so much suppression, it's important to keep it alive. The worst thing a culture can become is stagnant, especially Irish culture. I think we can all agree the old Irish culture with the Catholic Church dominating everything is not something we want to go back to. Unless, of course, you think loose women should be sent to the Meccan laundries, in which case you do you. Secondly, it creates an exclusionary part of Irish culture, which places Irish culture as something intrinsic to a person.
On that point?
No, thank you. Before I get to this point, I ask that all right-wing snowflakes please brace for impact. What makes someone Irish? Does it mean the amount of Irish blood they have, or does it mean when they are born and raised? I'm of the opinion it leans heavily towards the second. Conan O'Brien may be 100% Irish, but that doesn't make him Irish in my eyes, it makes him inbred. And a common black look-alike. On the other hand, someone who has spent the majority of their life in Ireland, while not ethnically Irish, they've been raised in the culture and have a deeper understanding. And why is that a costume? Isn't that more inherently Irish than not? Well, no. There's an increasingly worrying anti-immigration sentiment growing in the country, ironically from the country of immigrants. But during my research, i.e. reading the TikTok comment section, like a true scholar, people were talking about Irish culture being a costume, which is very handy for me as I was procrastinating writing this speech. And they were saying that Irish culture is not a costume, we should never see it in that way. But it wasn't in a slay, anti-capitalist, Irish culture's deeper meaning way. It was in a only white people can be Irish kind of way. And I think this is kind of what's been missed in a lot of the speeches. Maybe your speech, I was not listening, I'm so sorry, bro. I'll take a BOI.
the examples like Edmund and Dublin that show that black people can be Irish.
And that's one of the point I'm making, but I'm making it more in the sense that if we take Irish culture as not a costume, the people who say Irish culture is not a costume, you can woke it, but the reality is the majority of people, a lot of people who take it in that way, mean it as it's something inherently, i.e. ethnically part of you, so that you cannot put it on, because they're going to see a black person being Irish and wearing a GAA jersey as a costume, as like a mockery. Now that's not true. That's bad, but it is something we've seen, and it's something that allows for more of a sentiment. Whereas if you say Irish culture is a costume, not in a bad way, but like the way like in German, suit means a costume, you know what I mean? Yeah. You're dressing up nice and well, you make the choice of putting something on, it's inherently a costume. I think we have to take away, now, saying this in the last sentence of my speech is bad, but I think we have to take the negative connotation away from costume. It's not that we're dressing up as leprechauns and going la-di-da-di-da, let me drink like red, green-dyed Guinness. What we're saying is that it's something you can take on and off, and something that can be put on, and that the people who use Irish culture as not a costume are genuinely the Ireland is full crowd, the people in Coolock waving Irish flags in a way to intimidate the people. It's just something that can, it's just another, like, honestly, dog whistle to saying, like, Ireland, whites only in Ireland, and it's something we shouldn't allow in the country. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and you're right, we're both agreeing, but I have the better opinion on it. So with that, is far Gaeilge, Brista, nor Béarla Clista. I thank you for listening, and I beg you to oppose.
Thank you, Beth, for that very fine speech. And once again, a big round of applause to all of our speakers tonight. But you're not quite out of the woods, or rather off to the woodworkers yet, as it is now time for questions from the House. So do I have any questions for the proposition first, please? You guys have done a great job, obviously. Any questions? Yes, Ash.
I think I would like to do a clarification, because I think what exactly do you mean by costume? And in the sense of like, who, if it's not a costume, then the people who do commodify it, what is it then? Like, what's the difference between culture and costume?
Thank you. Someone from the proposition?
I think it kind of goes like the costume. You think of like kind of like people who come here, they like go to all the tourist sites and then they come back. I think the claddering is one of the most common souvenirs you bring back from Ireland, and I think a lot of people don't understand the meaning, and it's like they don't. I think it's the fact that they don't try to learn the meaning. They just see it as, oh wow, this is a piece of Ireland. You know, I came here, I drank a pint of Guinness at Temple Bar. They don't, like, that is the kind of, like, it's the kind of, you're coming here, you're doing, like, the kind of typical touristy things, but you're not actually trying to engage in depth with the culture. I think you're kind of putting on, like, this, like, instead of what you perceive to be, like, properly Irish, however, no one actually Irish, like, might not actually do that.
Thank you, Emily. A response from the opposition? Elliot?
Again, maybe it's because of my dark past, but I don't have a negative association with the idea of a costume. To me, a costume means something you try and become, something you try and embody. It's an ideal to aim for. And I think, so, you know, we were talking about earlier about how culture is fluid, depending on the way that you come across, people assign different cultures to you. I think people, when we say Irish culture is a costume, we mean that it's not something that's intrinsic to you, but it's something that you can try to aim for, you can try to become. And I think that goes to all cultures, not just Irish, and I think it's a good thing.
Thank you. Do we have a question for the opposition in the House? Yes, Maeve.
Do you not believe that Irish shouldn't be a costume? Irish culture shouldn't be a costume because it allows the capitalisation onto what is seen as being the costume of Irish culture, and in that I don't think any culture should be able to be capitalised and profited off it. And in that sense, that it causes it almost is seen as I love it's a joke, but it's almost a joke that it is just seen as something to act as and not actually a culture of many people.
Thank you. Would someone from the opposition care to respond?
I think it goes a little bit to Ellie's point of like being cultures need to inspire you. But I think specifically with Irish culture, like I think it's actually a good thing to capitalise off of it because so much of Irish culture comes from crafts. Claddagh rings comes from Claddagh and it's made by Irish jewellers, if you get the proper ones. You know, so much traditional textiling is made locally, like, you know, not to be a self-lib about it, but during COVID we did a lot of staycations and we went around like Ireland and there's so much like culture and crafts. And yeah, when we look at performative buying fudge from like Galway, yes, but did we give people money, like did we put money into the economy? Did we give people? I was so glad. But like I don't really understand why it's necessarily like so bad. And like they talk about like, oh, St. Patrick's Day and like Americans being a little bit like weird about it. And like sure, but like I don't really like care what they're up to. Like they're always a bit weird with everything. I just don't understand their culture. But I don't, like I think it's a good thing to like, you know, engage with it more. Like people wear claddagh rings now and it's a sign of pride. I think it's disingenuous to say that everybody engages with it in like a fake way. And I also think it's a thing of like, well, why is it so bad if someone comes to Ireland, buys a claddagh ring, drinks a Guinness and then goes home? Like that's one, tourist money. And two, people went to art, like enjoyed the culture. Like you don't have to go to a culture and like learn everything about it for a week-long vacation. Like I think that's a holiday, guys, not to be American. A holiday, not to be, you know, like overly intense about it. So I think like letting people engage with it in some way is a healthy thing because we have a culture we should be proud of. And a pride in culture is sharing that culture with as many people as possible.
Thank you, Beth. Rebuttal from the proposition.
I think the risk with commodification is that with the popularisation of claddagh rings and claddagh jewellery and stuff like that, it's not going to the jewellers in Claddagh, it's going to the TikTok shop girl that is like, Gavin is like, guys, I love my new claddagh bracelet, like swipe up and get it from China. Like, this is, like, they're not going to Claddagh in Galway, they're going to Amazon and getting it for €3.50. And that's just what the risk of like treating culture like a costume at the surface level does, is that it can create sort of this cheap layer that doesn't actually appreciate the culture around it, that doesn't come back to the islands, that doesn't come back to our culture, and instead just kind of scaves off of it in a way that doesn't benefit our island, doesn't adhere to like the kind of respect that we have for these kind of things. Like there is that respect for the claddagh ring, that it's meant to be like a gift that you get from someone else, that is like a gift to show that we hope you'll find love someday, and like that this is like a whole thing and you shouldn't buy it for yourself. It's like bad luck because Irish people are inherently superstitious. So I think when you say that, oh my god, yes, would love capitalism to like come into like culture and like spread it all around, we said that like, you know, Irish culture has survived emigration, has survived famine, has survived all these things without capitalism, without commodification, without all of the need of like, oh my god, everyone has a claddagh ring, I now want one. Like, enriching our culture does not mean that we have to give into commodification, we have to give into capitalism, and where everyone starts turning to the wrong kinds of sources to get these sort of things in order to adhere to this kind of costume, I think is going to be inherently harmful, and we need to be careful about it.
Thank you, EJ. And now to cap off our questions, I will take an abstaining question. Now, as a reminder for those, this is a question put evenly to both the proposition and the opposition. So if your question starts with, well, this applies more to the proposition than the opposition, don't worry, you'll find out. I have a very hard gavel. Now, last night, Ray threatened the gavel with her Boston Red Sox cap off. However, I can throw a much meaner pitch with my New York Yankees cap. You have 3 times as many seconds. Yes, Mr. Black.
This is directed equally at both sides, I assure you. I caught a bizarre number of strays during this debate, and I demand answers. One speaker, EJ, implied that I couldn't be considered ginger anymore because I've shaved my head, whereas on the complete opposite side, Beth compared me to Conan O'Brien, a man who has objectively fantastic hair. Now, I understand that Baker also caught many strays, but I mean, look at it, he deserves it. So my question. Is simple. What the hell?
Would you like to explain yourselves to Calvin, EJ?
I didn't particularly go into this taking aim at Calvin, and I did panic when I realised you didn't have hair.
only Calvin, and I'm so sorry you caught that stray, babe. It was not meant for you.
You know, people say the presidency is a very stressful job. Calvin had a full head of hair before he started it. Do we have a response from the opposition?
Yeah, so mine was kind of thinking of that interview Conan O'Brien did like years ago when he was like, I'm 100% Irish. I was like, that's crazy, I'll include it in my speech. And then I was kind of thinking, like, doesn't he kind of look like Calvin? And I googled it, and he does kind of look like Calvin. So I thought it was funny, and I added my speech because I'm here only for cheap jokes.
Mr. Secretary of the Trust, are you satisfied?
I am deeply satisfied. I accept all apologies.
I'll take Mr. Huey's abstaining question too to round us off.
I kind of feel like you should have done it the opposite way around and ended on Calvin's bit rather than my different question. So, sorry to bring everyone back down again.
You don't have to ask the question.
No, I do. I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been thinking about this a lot recently, thinking about my own family history and like the movement between the islands of Britain and Ireland, etc., and the influence that has on culture. And I guess my question to both sides is that they've defined Irish culture in a very specific way, and I want to know, like Ella referenced, like the influences of British TV, etc., in Ireland, and then you sort of mentioned around like the Ulster Protestant tradition and whether that's part of Irish culture. So I guess my question is around how you define Irish culture, and is there a, putting aside like the history of like the political relationship between the two islands, like what influences have on Irish culture developing, and how do you sort of view that?
Thank you, Ryan. I'll take someone from the opposition first.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting, kind of, like, particularly when you were talking about the mix of, like I would love to go, we're all Irish, but the reality is a lot of people on this island don't want to be Irish, and the benefit of the Good Friday Agreement is you can identify however you want, and that, I do think that's a good thing, because I would like someone saying to me that you're one thing, and me not getting to go, well, no, I am, like, let me be Irish. Like, everyone is however they are, and I think that's kind of, it's a complicated thing, but it's also a beautiful thing on this island. And then in terms of how I define Irish culture, it's my experience is how I define it, and it's the reason that I'm saying it's not, that saying it's not a costume is a bad thing is, I don't know, for me it just harks back to times where, like, my parents used to say, they'd be like, you know, back in the 80s, like, you didn't hear about these Americans being like, I'm Irish, and they'd hark back, we used to win Eurovision so much, and I'd be like, but wasn't unemployment so bad? Like, not that it's bad, like, anyone's not great now, guys, but like, and the racism, and the, like, the homophobia, and like it was, like, the Ireland back then is not an Ireland I want to go back to. I'm pretty happy where I am in the European Union, and being able to travel everywhere, and having a fun time. Sorry to the guys in the north, you know, or Northern Ireland again, it's whatever you want. But the, I'm just, it's kind of, this island is, in my head, what I'm so proud of is how messy everything is, because we all managed to get along in the end of the day. You are sitting with people who disagree with you on practically everything, particularly in this university. It's a couple of everyone from this island and all the different places, and yet we all get along, we all go for pints, and we all have a good time, and to me that's Irish culture. Yeah.
Thank you, Ella. Someone from the proposition.
I've been thinking a lot about how, building on what y'all have said, when people from, you know, in the early 1900s and before and after, you know, when Irish people came to this country, you know, to help build things like the Transatlantic Railroad connecting the East and West of the United States, those people, they would split off and they would find places in California, in Boston, along the Rio Grande River in Texas, and they would take their culture, and it would sort of cease to, it would at and at the same time not be, continually be Irish culture. It would become Irish American culture, or an Irish Texas culture, or an Irish Massachusetts Boston culture, or an Irish Sacramento culture. These people come to all things. It's not a sacrosanct thing. The culture evolves. It changes over time, and I think that's generally a good thing. The people grow up around they develop new foods, new ideas, new music, and that sort of feeds back into the growth. You think if everything just stayed the same and no one ever left or moved, that we had the same monoculture for every single race of people on Earth, that would be a good thing? I think people would get bored of that pretty quick.
Thank you, Josh. And that concludes our questions section of tonight's debate, which brings us on to the verdict. So this is our vote on speaker ability. This is measured not on your prior held opinion, but on the speaker's abilities in presentation, rhetoric, argument, teamwork and engagement throughout the debate. So can I have all those who wish to vote for the proposition and vote on speaker ability to raise their hands now, please? Yes, and can I have all those who'd like to vote for the opposition on the vote on speaker ability to raise their hands now, please? Yes. And finally, can I have all those who wish to abstain from the vote on speaker ability to raise their hands now, please? Yes. Mr. Secretary, can I have the results from the vote on speaker ability, please?
Yeah, with 12 votes for the proposition, 28 votes for the opposition and 12 abstentions, the opposition carries and the motion falls.
Hats off to the opposition and to all of our speakers tonight. You'll notice on your seats that there were some very nicely printed term cards, and that shows all the great events, socials and debates that we've got coming up, and that leads me nicely onto council announcements to draw your attention to these great things our society are taking part in. So council, do I have any announcements in the house tonight? Yes, Madam Eternal.
Hi guys, so thank you all for coming again. The weather's not great today, so come out, it's kind of nice and not go to Baba instead, so thanks to all the pressures for making that hard decision today and choosing us instead. You go to Baba after. But congratulations to the two maiden speakers we had today, they're absolutely amazing. I want as many maidens as possible. As like I've already broken the record, but I want even more guys. So if you are nervous, if you are sitting here and you punch in the face and you don't want to do it, I said this at the woman's look to me yesterday, I will have a coffee with you. I will buy that coffee, not today, I'm broke today, but like, just come Monday, money comes in, I will talk to you and I will help you feel less nervous, because the reality is, anyone who's spoken before will tell you that it's actually just a bit of crack and it's really good fun, and everyone's really nice to you afterwards, and if you speak well, someone might buy you a pint. Won't be me today though, I am broke. So just please sign up to speak. It's really, really fun and everyone should do it and it makes me happier. And then next week, this house will boycott the World Cup, which is really fun because anyone who's a fan of the Irish football team knows the playoffs are coming up. Or is it the playoffs you call it? Or, yeah, it is. Checking my ball knowledge. Against in Czechia, the Irish are taking on Czechia, and it's a big deal for us. I'm pretty sure it's on the same night, but hopefully we'll finish quickly. I'm going to already preempt that debate's probably going to be a 3v3 because everyone will want to watch football. But the sign-ups aren't full yet, so if you want to speak on that, let me know. It should be a really fun debate. Everyone tends to have opinions on the World Cup because even if you don't watch football, you watch the World Cup. It's actually fun. And also, I want to preemptively talk about our annual Dufferin competition, which is going to be the week after that. The next week's a very busy week for us, so I'm not going to do anything with Dufferin next week. But what I am going to do is I'm going to create the form and put it in the group chat. Dufferin is our competition that is kind of BP, but kind of not. I want it to be more BP this year, for the benefit of us seeming like we know how to run a BP competition. But basically, it's our own competition where there'll be a pre-round in the PFC probably, judged by people, and you won't get the motion until 15 minutes beforehand, because that's how BP, British Parliamentary Style Debating, works. And if you want to think about that, if you have any questions about doing the competition, the great thing is that we'll have a grand final in here and you get to win a cool trophy. We have an individual winner and a team winner. We might have a cool chair, that's all on me and my ability to email people. We'll see how that goes. But it should be a fun competition. If you're in any way interested or have any questions about it, talk to me, message me. I probably won't go to the pub today because I'm a bit tired, but talk to me here or message me on Instagram or WhatsApp, and I will put the form in next week so we can get as many sign-ups as possible. If you go to our BP Spars, you should be signing up for Dufferin. If you don't go to our BP Spars, you should be signing up for Dufferin. If you're like David Martin, who showed up to our ID and just decided to spoof the thing, you should be signing up for Dufferin. So everyone should be signing up, please, because it makes my life easier. That's me.
Thank you, Ellen. Yes, make sure to get involved and really put yourself forward in debates. You'll not regret it. Do I have any other council announcements? Mr. Events?
It's a while off, everyone, but we do have Sam McBride, the editor of the Belfast Telegraph, coming to the Society. That'll be on the 30th of March, he'll talk about mostly his new book with Fintan O'Toole, Flooring Against a United Ireland. That should be quite a fun one. And it was great to see so many of you at the Mary McAleese talk, and I hope we're able to get that one as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please make sure to scan that QR code to stay posted on the great events that we've got coming up. Madam Vice President?
Yes, for any speakers who want feedback, please come to me next Tuesday. I will give you feedback. Also, we have 4 port fines. Yay! Elliot, you owe 2 now, and then Emily owes 1. So thank you.
Yes, so I'd like to encourage you to come along to next week's debate because there will be boards, and also considering it's a World Cup debate, I'd like to encourage everyone to wear football tops to next week's debate. So bring your most stylish looking football tops. Yeah, I'm excited for that. If we don't have any other council announcements, I'd like to draw your attention to massive things that our society are doing within the next 2 weeks. Firstly, we have our Conversazione. This is our landmark formal that we have every year, held at the Ulster Reform Club. A great night's crack awaits. Make sure to sign up, get your ticket. You do actually get a physical ticket, whom a lot of you have received already. It is a great excuse to dress up, to have some drinks, and just to generally unwind and celebrate the great year that we've had of our society this year. And talking about having great years and the society's future to come, I would also like to encourage all of you to come to our AGM, which is going to be held here in McMorley Hall next Monday, the 16th of March at 6 p.m. The nominations are in, the amendments have been submitted. Now the future is in your hands, so please get involved. But for the meantime, we will be going back to our usual laveries after this debate. As is tradition, we're not just a debating society, we're very much a social society, so I hope to see you all at Lavery's tonight. If I can have speakers to the front, council stay behind, I'm proud to call this meeting adjourned.